What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, going to transition back into a little free agency talk for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got about 5 days, man, until NFL tampering period begins. Free agency going to set the Twitter world, the social media world ablaze. Franchise tags period has came and went. So now we have a little bit better understanding about who's going to be available over the next 5 days. Some of these guys will potentially get brought back by their teams. We could see more people released, but I feel like right now we have a really good idea of who's going to be in the market. So I want to talk about linebackers today. I know it's a big position group that you guys have asked me about the free agency pool, everything like that. Free agency does have some quality linebackers, some guys that I really like, schematic fits, good fits for what the Steelers typically look for at the position, good fits for what I feel like they need at the position. So there's a lot of big names out there too. I don't particularly see the Steelers spending big at that position, but there's some big fish out in the pond right now. You think about Patrick Queen, Jordan Brooks, some of those guys, the bigger name guys that I feel like are more mainstream. They're going to command a lot of attention, a lot of money. We'll see, how big of players the Steelers want to be in free agency. But I have identified, 3 players that I feel like are really good fits. We'll kind of keep with the same theme that we've done for the previous videos when we went over receivers, centers, things like that. As always, if you guys could like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that stuff is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. But before we get into like the 3 specific fits that I've kind of identified, or that I like, I want to talk a little bit about just the position as a whole for where the Steelers currently stand. Just on the roster right now, they've got Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts. Those guys are kind of the returning quote unquote starters. Holcomb's a little bit different because, he is coming off the season-ending knee injury. This is back-to-back seasons where he's, been unable to finish due to a serious injury. So that's something to monitor. He's still relatively young, 27, 28 years old. Hopefully he bounces back. But I thought that he was really couple weeks before he got hurt, I really felt like he was starting to play a little bit better and getting more comfortable within the system. I thought the first month or so was a little rocky. But he's somebody they signed to a 3-year deal. They definitely expect him to be a pretty significant piece to the defense. Relatively small-ish cap hit around $7 million. So I definitely think that, he's going to be a part of the picture regardless. The other guy, Landon Roberts, one of my favorite players to watch on their defense last year. He's kind of where Holcomb is kind of the run and hit player. Roberts is really just the downhill thumper, the old school kind of Vince Williams type of role that we've came and loved for, so long in the Steel City. But Roberts was awesome last season. I thought he well exceeded his expectations, the expectations that I had. He's a very skill-specific player. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. He will take on blocks. He will shed. He's going to play the run. He adds a little bit of blitzing potential too. So when I'm trying to figure out who is going to be the third guy in that mix, they had obviously had a lot of injuries last season. You need some depth there. And also they've shown the capability to kind of rotate those guys in the middle. And that's what a lot of NFL teams are doing right now is they're just trying to find these players that have these really specific skill sets and kind of just trying to piece the room together like that. Depending on down and distance, the teams you're playing, it gives you just a lot of different options to stop various offensive attacks. But Quan Alexander also suffered a serious injury. Quan is a guy who also has had a lengthy injury history at this point. I'm not really sure what his market's going to be, or I don't anticipate that he's going to sign anywhere anytime soon because he got hurt so late into the season. I don't anticipate he's going to be back in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, Quan's an awesome dude. Wish him the best, but I think it's really difficult to project, bringing back 2 linebackers that are coming off of, pretty serious injuries. So especially veteran guys, that are on their second, third contracts, things like that. So before I get into these next couple of options that I like in free agency, just want to kind of talk a little about like kind of the things that I'm looking for. Like I said, I don't anticipate the Steelers are going to be big players in free agency. They just typically don't make those type of splash moves, but there are some guys that I feel like fit the type of player that, I'm personally looking forward to add to the room, getting a little bit faster, on the back end. Something I talked a lot about in the film rooms on this channel, on Twitter, everything else has been just wanting to get faster in the back end. Having a guy that can, actually cover is a plus for me. Having a guy with some athleticism, straight line speed, change of direction, all those things are good things. And also I feel like, just having, different type of skill sets, adding a blitzer, I feel like you'll see some of that, some of these recurring themes in the players that I'm going to talk about. But, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about behind door number 1, a guy that I really was extremely impressed with, Drew Tranquil from Kansas City. He spent the first, all of his rookie contract with the Los Angeles Chargers. Tranquil was a guy who many were really surprised that he didn't have a bigger market in free agency last season. He kind of took a prove it deal and went to division rival and win a Super Bowl. And not only was he, he was kind of brought in as this depth piece. Kansas City didn't really need a linebacker at the time, but he's a guy who can do a lot of different things. Very versatile. He's going to be 29 years old next season. He played 700 snaps for the Chiefs defense and Spagnuolo's system. He was a three-spot backup for them, played every position on their second level. He did have some mic duties. I think he did handle some of the communication stuff pre-snap, which I think is, notable. Want to dig a little bit more into that. But, they had some injuries along the spine of the defense last year, and he really stepped in and gave them really good production. Just looking at some of the numbers, 42 total stops, 22 pressures, 5 sacks, according to Pro Football Focus. Former safety coming out of college at Notre Dame, so he has some coverage chops to him. I do think that, I went back and watched one of the games last season. I really appreciate like his feel and instincts in coverage. He's a guy that even dating back to his days with the Chargers was given a lot of difficult assignments in coverage, whether it's, carrying wheel routes up the field, running up the pole and cover 2, having to cover number 3 wide receivers vertically and some quarter stuff. And he's really held up extremely well, showing that, defensive background. I think, again, carries threats vertically, just some of the notes that I wrote down. I do think he sniffs out screens really well. He's a guy that was in the backfield a lot. As a run defender, he's a gap sound player, understands where he needs to be, gets people lined up correctly pre-snap. He's also a willing take-on blocker. I remember, just on social media and stuff when he was a free agent, that was something that a lot of people were saying that he wasn't going to a good run defender. But I think some of that was just, the Chargers have historically struggled to stop the run, but I don't think that it was all of their linebackers. A couple different factors there is they just were not good on the defensive line. They did not know how to draft and identify, develop talent up front. And I felt like it caused a lot of stress on their linebackers. And the player that he was playing with a lot in Los Angeles was Kenneth Murray, who I just really didn't really care a ton for as a prospect. He's also, I believe, a free agent. But he was just kind of, very poor instincts guy that I felt like he was Tranquil was constantly trying to make up for his mistakes. So, but he's a good player, can blitz, do a lot of different things, blitz and coverage, chops, definitely things that I value and things I would like to see brought to the room. If you just kind of look at, we'll kind of continue on with the theme of the other videos, just looking at some of his projected contract stuff via Brad Spielberg from Pro Football Focus. He's projected 2 years, 3.3 average per year. So a total of $6.7 million. Very little money guaranteed. I think if you're looking for a guy that's going to provide you depth and can come in and do different things for you and also, potentially carve out a role as like a dime backer, I think that Tranquil makes a lot of sense. The Steelers don't necessarily have a coverage linebacker on the roster. Even their depth pieces right now, Mark Robinson, he's probably more in the role of like a thumper type and definitely not a guaranteed lock to make the roster. So this is a different type of player that, I think would fit really well with what they had. Also, coaches absolutely love this dude. A lot of these, all 3 of these guys, I kind of just was kind of searching the interwebs, trying to get a feel for, some of the comments and stuff. And a lot of Tranquil praise from Spagnuolo and the Chiefs. He was able to pick up that defense really quickly. And I think that speaks to, his football IQ. Next guy we're going to talk about is Blake Cashman from Houston. This guy really has a really interesting career. I remember Cashman as a prospect coming out way back in, I think, 2019 or so. Cashman was a phenomenal athlete coming out. He tested extremely well. I want to say his relative athletic score was like 9.5, ran a blazing 40, was kind of noted as, being a strong tackler. And I think when you see that and you still see that on film a little bit, Cashman's going to be 28 next season. He played 700 snaps for the first time in his career. And in fact, that was more snaps than I think he had played in his entire career combined. This is a guy who's just been snake bitten a little bit with injury history. That's obviously scary and it could potentially lower his value. And, you're going to have to be really comfortable with that. But this guy's coming off the best season of his career by far. Played really well for D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico's defense really struggled. Their cover 3 stuff, I felt like their inside linebacker play was really, really shaky. And that was something that I remember at the beginning of the season because but right before the Steelers played them, I was sitting there thinking like, man, they could definitely take advantage of the linebackers. Blake Cashman came in, gave him stability. He finished the season 48 stops, 9 pressures, 3 sacks. Very fundamentally sound tackler. Like I said, active player, downhill, loves like really, really good closing speed. Had a really good 10-yard split that I remember coming out of college. And, this is a player who can, he can move a little bit. So But his effective zone dropper, read quarterback's eyes. He had an awesome interception last year off Trevor Lawrence, where he was kind of reading a dig route, working behind him. He read Lawrence's eyes, got a good feel, flipped his hips real fluidly, made a diving interception away from his frame. He does locate crossers coming across the field. Really good player that you want if you want to run a lot of sim pressures. You can put him at the line of scrimmage, drop him out in coverage. He's a really good blitzer from the second level too. Understands how to disguise his intentions pre-snap. Coverage player, like I said, impressive closing speed. You just got to be really comfortable with the injury history. And I totally understand that, that's going to scare probably some teams off. If you just look at the market value from Brad and his mark, 2 years, 4.25 million. That's about 8.5 million total. And again, these are cheap kind of pieces. Definitely, you're going to have a significantly low year one cap hit. But I do think that Cashman is a starter level player who has versatility. And I do think that he kind of provides the different type of skill set that the Steelers are currently lacking from an athleticism and just play type standpoint. So he's definitely an option there. Glad to see him healthy and, coming off a good year. I always want to be coming off your best season heading into free agency. So it's awesome. And the last player that we're going to go over, Jerome Baker from Miami. This is a guy who's caught a lot of steam on social media in the last couple of days. And, it's relatively well-founded, right? Like, he just makes a lot of sense when you look at the profile, look at the type of players that the Steelers are typically gravitated towards. Ohio State guy, former third-round pick. This is a guy who's going to be 27 years old next season, 45 stops, 14 pressure, 6 sacks last year for the Dolphins in that Big Fangio, quarters, midfield, split safety defense. This guy's been a 6-year starter, man. Like, he's been very productive. He's played a lot of ball, still at a young age, 27. He was a young defensive prospect coming out of college, been a team captain, notable defensive leader, all those types of things, all the intangible aspects that you look for coming out of college. I think, really the book on Baker that I remember was that he was a very good athlete, still figuring it out in terms of eliminating some of the processing speed issues, some false steps against the run, things like that. But I will tell you that just from afar, when I've watched Baker, he's a guy over the last couple of years that I feel like has gotten a lot better. Early in his career, I thought that, he struggled a little bit and they kind of let him take his lumps. But, just a couple of years ago before he re-upped in Miami, he was playing some really good ball. And that's why they decided to give him a contract extension. He was let go. The Dolphins are in significant cap hell, if you will. They've got a lot of issues right now. They're probably going to have to give Tua a big contract. He kind of got lost in the shuffle and just flat out, like a lot or several of the Dolphins defenders last year, they just didn't have their best season and weren't playing their best ball in the Fangio system. They moved on, got a new defensive coordinator. They're wanting to start over. It is what it is. It gives him the opportunity to hit free agency early, and he's going to be one of the bigger names, I feel like, on the market. But, like I said, he's gotten better. Definitely a more sound player than he was coming out of college. Still has the play speed, lateral mobility, range as a run defender, stuff that you really like. This dude can go sideline to sideline. He keeps pullers well. He is a guy that wants to slip box instead of taking on blocks, with physicality, stacking and shedding. But he offers significant pass rush traits. This is a guy who you think back to his time when he was with Brian Flores, former Steelers coach, had a cup of coffee there. This is a guy who they were kind of using a lot in that, kind of amoeba defense, using him off the edge, using him as a blitzer in the A gap, all that different stuff. You just look at the numbers, really impressive. He's got 27 sacks over the course of his 6-year career. A lot of those, he's been over, you just look 2020, 8 sacks, 6 sacks, 6 sacks, only 2 sacks last year, I should say. But this is a guy who's, he's been productive really throughout his career. I do also think that he's a solid player in coverage. He covers well to the flat. This dude, like I said, he has the range as a coverage player as well. I do think that he does a really good job maintaining leverage and coverage. So one of the things, like if he's playing inside leverage, he does not let guys cross his face. He does a good job wrapping up for tackles, preventing yards after the catch. He's also a really good communicator. You'll see him when he's in zone coverage. He's probably better in a like man, or he's not a guy that is has an exceptional feel in zone, but he's a guy that will call out routes. He'll pass off crossers, collect guys coming the other direction, something I really appreciate. So this is a guy who I think is really exactly what the Steelers probably are missing at the position. You know, he's got some coverage chops. He can rush the passer. He's a good athlete. All those things are, you know, things that they're kind of missing in the room right now. There's going to be a lot of smoke. You know, the Steelers had some interest in him coming out of the draft back in 2018, I believe. You know, Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert, those guys are pretty much always at the Ohio State Pro Days. So they get a good, you know, feel for those players. Another kind of fun fact about Baker is, you know, when he was coming out, he was drawing some comparisons to Ryan Shazier. You know, he's not quite the athlete Shazier is, definitely not at this point in his career either, but he is a good athlete, whereas Shazier was more of like just an absolute freak. But obviously Shazier, Ohio State guy, they have a connection. He's said that, you know, he kind of models his game a little bit after him. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I definitely think that it's one of those things that's caught steam on social media, but it definitely makes sense even from like just a logical, non-biased standpoint. So I have a feeling we'll probably be doing a film room on him soon because, like I said, I think that he's the most likely option. I'm not really sure what the market's going to be like for him, right? Because you know this is a guy who's going to be playing for his third contract. You know he was let go early from Miami, but he's been a really productive player, and even in a market that has like I said, some big fish. I'm not really sure exactly what he's going to be wanting in terms of dollar amount. He's recently released. He was just let go, I think, yesterday or the day before. So Pro Football Focus hasn't even really added him to the rankings or anything like that. There's no contract projections available for him just yet. I think he's probably the most expensive of the three players, but definitely a starting caliber player. He has he's worked with the Landon Roberts. They played together in Miami under Flores. So there's some, I always think that chemistry aspect of it, especially on the spine of the defense, is a nice added bonus to this. But Baker, very good player. Definitely somebody that I think, could be a contributing complementary piece on the Steelers defense. And, really, the other aspect of this is the Steelers are in a position to where they honestly have to make a move in free agency. They don't really have, I don't want to say that you don't have a choice, because you always have a choice, but there's just not very much top tier talent or depth at the linebacker position in this draft class. I've really struggled to find linebacker prospects that I'm really passionate about or really excited about. As far as their translation to the next level, there's some guys that I think can be baseline starters, that are younger players. They're going to be cheap, but I'm not even really sure if there's anybody that I would really bang the table for picking in the second round, where the Steelers are picking at 51. With all the depth at the other positions, particularly you look at, some of the top tier names at the cornerback position, the tackle positions, even center, receiver, those positions. If you're going to go into the draft, I would prefer to, get better value at those other positions rather than having to, reach on an inside linebacker because you didn't add one in free agency. And there's quite a few guys available. I mean, I only talked about a couple of them, but there are other guys that are going to command a lot of, attention. Devin White, Azeez Al-Shaair, again, bigger names. Levante David's technically a free agent. Bobby Wagner, older guys, Frankie Louvu. There's going to be a lot of competition for a lot of these guys, but there's a lot of names available, and this is just kind of how I envision them building out the roster. So I think Baker ultimately will end up being the decision here, but we will see what happens, But I appreciate you guys tapping in with me as always. Definitely, again, just like the video, subscribe, drop me a comment. Let me know what position group y'all want to see next. I'm going to start on some more draft content for you guys. And also, my goal is by Monday to be able to get one of these videos on corners and safeties up, just because I know it's a position that you guys have asked me about. So if that's something y'all want, just please be sure to let me know, help support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your week.